Hello students, think of this line. In spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. It was written way back in the 1940s by a teenage girl, Anne Frank, who was persecuted by the Nazis and hiding in a secret annex to escape torture, imprisonment and death. In today's lesson on the Rattrap, we will find characters like Annie who believe in the essential goodness of human nature and like to give people chances. They are aware of the injustice of the world and understand that only unconditional love and care can transform people who have been forced into a life of crime. Many real-life criminals have been known to transform themselves completely. Take the example of Eugene Francois Vidocq. He was alleged of crimes like theft and taking false identities. He worked as a detective and spy for the French police in the Napoleonic era. Before we find out more about the story, let us learn a little bit about our author, Selma Lagerlof. Selma Lagerlof was born in western Sweden in 1858. She worked as a school teacher from 1885 to 1895. Her storytelling skills helped her win the attention and hearts of the girls in her class. She was idealistic and imaginative, rebelling against the realistic way of storytelling which the famous Swedish playwright August Strindberg practiced. Her stories are like fairy tales, with their focus on teaching moral values. Gösta Berling's saga was the first novel she wrote. Lagerlof was also the first female writer to be awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1909. She died in March 1940. We shall now start with Selma Lagerlof's short story for today, The Rat Trap. Right at the beginning, we are first introduced to the character of the peddler who sells rat traps. The peddler is a vagabond who makes rat traps from the material he collects from farms by begging. As you can guess, selling rat traps can hardly make ends meet for the poor vagabond. So, he often steals to get by. He is a picture of poverty and helplessness. There is a look of hunger in his eyes and his cheeks are sunken. He wears tattered and dirty clothes. The only way out of the harsh reality and boredom of the peddler's life is through his thoughts. He keeps himself entertained through the thoughts he has about the people he sees and about life in general. One day, an amusing thought strikes him. He feels that the world is a rat trap which lures or tempts people with its baits of food, clothing, shelter, and riches. If we are not careful, we would be led into the rat trap and meet with a fatal and tragic end. The vagabond's thoughts show that he has a vivid imagination, a philosophical bent of mind, and the attractive ability to find humor in the simple situations of life. Humor can be a great way to deal with the boredom and sadness of life. It is what prevents us from turning bitter after a bad experience and keeps us human. It stops us from seeking revenge. One day, the peddler reaches the cottage of a former iron crofter while aimlessly walking along the road. He knocks for shelter, not expecting to be lucky. He is pleasantly surprised when the owner of the cottage invites him inside and also cooks some porridge for him. We find that the crofter is lonely and has no family to look after him. He is only too glad to have a visitor for the night and talks to his heart's content. He reveals that he once worked at Ramsjo Ironworks and led a life of luxury. Here's some food for thought for you. The crofter's profession is significant because it relates to the local history of today's story. Sweden is a country famous for its rich iron ore, and that tells us why the crofter was a prosperous man. He worked at an iron mill. We find that the crofter is a talkative and vulnerable man who easily shares private details about his life with a complete stranger. He has a cow which yields good quality creamy milk and supports him in his retirement. He tells the peddler that he has earned 30 kroner from selling milk. Much to the peddler's surprise, the crofter even shows him where he keeps his 30 kroner. Next morning, the peddler leaves but soon returns to the cottage and steals the money when the crofter is away. He does not feel guilt or remorse at robbing a man who trusted him and provided him shelter, food, warmth, and friendship. Instead, he congratulates himself and feels good about his smartness and his stroke of luck. Even though he feels pleased with his robbery, he fears the police. So he avoids the public highway and takes the path through the woods. The paths in the forest twist back and forth and confuse the peddler. After a while, he realizes that he has been walking around in the same part of the forest and has lost his way. Immediately, he recalls his thought about the world being a rat trap. He feels that he has let himself tempted by the 30 kroner bait at the crofter's cottage. No wonder he is now trapped in the forest, which is symbolic of the rat trap. We shall continue with the story in our next video and find out if the peddler can make his way out of the forest and the rat trap he has walked into. Till then, goodbye.